welcome, bienvenue, particularly to recognize that this forum is being held online from August 24th to 26th in Charlottetown, PEI, and streaming from the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. In respect to our official languages, and particularly with knowing that we have guests from Quebec and other parts of Atlantic Canada who are Francophone, simultaneous translation is available, as some of the speakers will be speaking in French. So it's French to English, English to French. And so I would ask Julia if she might give some instruction as to how you can access the translation mode, because our panel this morning, there is one speaker for sure who's speaking in French, and there may be questions that are in French and English. So Julia, would you please pick it up from here? Thank you.
Oui, absolument. Alors, il y a un groupe de symboles en bas de l'écran maintenant. Il y a un symbole qui est un cercle, c'est peut-être comme un globe. Ça dit interprétation. Alors, veuillez appuyer sur interprétation et vous pouvez voir qu'il y a des options pour anglais ou français. Si vous appuyez sur français, vous pouvez entendre nos traducteurs qui vont traduire toutes les choses des présentations de anglais à français. Alors, c'est très simple, c'est seulement un bouton et puis juste le choix des langues. Alors, si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez envoyer un courriel ou demander à moi, mais c'est très simple.
Any questions on how to access the interpretation? Is everybody clear that you can access it at the bottom of the screen and it will indicate what language you're moving to, English or French, French to English?
And important to remember that if you wish to always listen in French, to keep French selected, and to always listen in English, keep English selected.
Okay. So with that, I would like to ask Julie Pellissier-Lush to actually open the morning. And for those of you who are with us last evening, Julie is our poet laureate for PEI. She's also works strongly as a Mi'kmaq artist and advocate. And we're really happy to have her with us. And she may have more words of introduction for herself, but Julie, I'm just going to pass it over to you. Thank you.
And Patsy, I'll get you to turn off your webcam so that Julie will come main screen for us.
Quaich, Jalasi, Ndelawisi Julie. Hello and welcome. My name is Julie, Mi'kmaq, and I reside in this beautiful territory known as Mi'kma'ki. And I would like to welcome all of you in peace and friendship. And last night when I was thinking about this morning, because last night I said a prayer about how we need to look after ourselves and how we need to ground ourselves. And today I really wanted to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to go back to where I feel that I am very strong in, and that is storytelling. So I figured I would share a story that I heard just a couple weeks ago. I've been going around interviewing elders here in Prince Edward Island, and every once in a while they'll tell me something that sticks in my head and bounces around until I know I just have to share it. Now this story, I was told, is called The Story of the Sweetgrass Woman. Now long ago in this beautiful land of Mi'kma'ki, there was a woman, and her name was Sweetgrass, and she helped the Creator in making this beautiful island called Abaguet, or Prince Edward Island. She was the one there at all the beginning of time that helped make the birds and the animals, and she made the trees. She selected which ones would be the most beautiful here on our beautiful island. And after many, many years of creating and using her imagination to make this the most beautiful place, she got very, very tired. And she decided that it was time for her to have a rest. So she went to the Creator and she said, I think that I need to go and lay down and just rest for a while. And the Creator was a little bit worried about this. He said, the people need you. You are part of our prayers. You are a part of what makes us able to communicate to the Creator. And of course, she said, don't you worry. So she went and she crawled into this beautiful red soil here in PEI. And as she went there, she left her hair sticking up from the ground. And that is her beautiful sweetgrass hair. Now, as she lay there, the wind would sway it this way and that, and it emitted a beautiful smell. So anybody who was walking through the woods, they would know that sweetgrass was around, and they could still pick it and still share their prayers by using it in a smudge. So if you ever are driving around PEI and your window is slightly open in the spring and the summer and the fall, you might just get a little whiff of something that smells a little bit similar to vanilla. And you'll know that the sweetgrass is around. And if you look at it, it is still considered the hair of Mother Earth as it sways this way and that way in the wind. Now, she left it that way so that the Mi'kmaq people and anybody who is in need of prayers would be able to go and find them, collect them, prepare them, and use them for their ceremonies or even just their prayers. Because when you light sweetgrass on fire, there is a beautiful white smoke that comes out. And it's that smoke that carries our prayers up to the Creator. And so it's part of our 4 sacred medicines. I hope you enjoyed that story, just a little story to start the day. Get your imaginations working because I've seen what you have on your agenda and today looks absolutely amazing. So just to get your brain started in the right way, I hope you enjoyed my story about the sweetgrass woman. Walalio, and thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I think everyone feels more connected to the earth and to the water and to the air. Thank you so much for opening our day that way. I am just wanting to share my screen here for a minute. I want to make a couple of announcements. And one of them is, again, a little bit of taking over from what Julie was saying last night in terms of self-care. And to let you know that we actually have put a fair amount of effort into thinking about what you can do on your breaks, how you can actually turn off your video and stand up and stretch if you need to. You're going to be sitting a lot today. It's not like you're at an event where you can go and meet with people, get out and go for a walk with other people that are at the event. But you can get out and go for a walk. And we did send out some information and some hints and tips as to how you can take care of yourself while you're on a Zoom call. So that is actually on your community board. So it's been sent to you by email, but those notices are all getting posted on the community board today. So if you go into Whova, you will find it. And we're really trying to give you some tips for self-care and some networking. There's some yoga tips and yoga sites. We also are featuring musicians who have been very kind to send us some links to their music that you can listen to. And so we have a musician from every province, David Miles from New Brunswick, Jessica Jurgenlim at Nova Scotia, Brielle Ansems in PEI, and Robert Cal, who is one of our board members from Newfoundland and Labrador. So have a listen. They have their websites are there. If you can support their music, buy a CD, download a piece of music, that would be a great support to them. We also have a scavenger hunt, and each day there's a scavenger hunt, and there is a winner for the first one, and the winner has a $30 Indigo gift card, and each day there is another Indigo gift card. So day 2, the scavenger hunt clues are up on the community board. So go have a look. It's kind of a way of getting around all the exhibits, and when you have a break, you can move that way. There's also a raffle. Atlantic Superstore in Charlottetown has donated $500 gift card. Raffle tickets are $5, and that gift card is for groceries at any superstore. And so that is a very generous gift from Atlantic Superstore. Just wanted to let you know there is a raffle. So can anyone on staff let me know who was the winner of the day 1 scavenger hunt? Well, maybe that's a secret. It's going to be held until break today. So we will get back to you on that, but there is a winner, and the winner will be announced. And just again to say thank you to our very generous sponsors, acknowledge the support of the Secretariat de Quebec, aux Relations Canadiennes, all our provincial government partners, and our sponsors as well. So everyone's made a really big effort to have this event come online so that we didn't miss a year. It would be very hard not to get together after a year like we've had. So we're here and we want to stay connected. So we're using every method possible, and just want to let you know again that during the event, if you can stay connected with others who aren't so able to be here through social media, here are some of the hashtags and handles that you can use to stay connected. So you'll notice there's lots of opportunities. So please, as points come up, do that. So that would be terrific. And thank you very much. Merci. We'll move on now. I think that Eva Sock was going to be doing the introduction, but I think she's having some difficulty in...
She is here.
She is here. Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to stop my sharing and turn it over there. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eva. Glad to see you made it.
Oh my goodness, yeah. This virtual thing is a bit of a difficulty at times. Anyway, I just want to say welcome. Actually, well, si dandel bedayo dandikleya waftie. Nige lugawaan gis ko na ha limuto sab dawan niga glewogda na ha 62 desno gunwarap si desno kay daigay dudish kalaman nangis machukat desno kay iganida desno siawida desno wala niyo. What I said was welcome to our territory, and my job today is to introduce speakers, and I'm not sure, do I introduce 3 of them all at once?
Yes, please.
I'll introduce 3 of them all at once, and I just said that to thank them, they're here for their knowledge, and that we take the knowledge from these 3 people and for John and move on and make some changes. So I'll start with Claire. Claire Betker. She's a scientific director at the National Collaborative Center for Determinants of Health at StFX University, Antigonish, Nova Scotia. As a registered nurse, Claire Betker began her career in southern Manitoba at a rural single nurse public health office. She has worked in public health, home care, and primary health care in a variety of positions at local, regional, provincial, and national levels. Claire is scientific director for the National Collaborative Center for Determinants of Health, hosted by St. Francis Xavier University. Her PhD work focused on the capacity for public health leadership to advance health equity, a knowledge base that greatly informs her contributions to the center and the public health field across Canada. Claire is a past president of the Canadian Nurses Association and the Community Health Nurses of Canada, and a past chair of the Associate of Registered Nurses of Manitoba. Welcome, Claire, and thank you for being here. Edwaptamunk is the Mi'kmaq word for two-eyed seeing and refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, and learning to use both these eyes together for the benefit of all. In conversation with Dr. Albert Marshall, policy and its role in transformation change will be explored using the two-eyed seeing approach. Policy is an essential lever to support the mental health and wellness of individuals, families, and communities. Holistic health is made possible by supporting the whole person, including mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical aspects of their health. In this presentation, we will describe how two-eyed seeing is being used as a lens for policy in Canada, as well as other parts of the world. Policy action, influencing, developing, implementing, and evaluating policy is a must for a holistic health and will be discussed within a vision for transformative change. Albert Marshall, Dr. Albert Marshall, Elder, Moose Clan of the Mi'kmaq Nation, Eskasoni First Nation, Unama'kiCape, Breton. Dr. Albert Marshall, Elder, is from the Moose Clan of the Mi'kmaq Nation and lives in Eskasoni First Nation in Cape Breton. Albert and his wife, Merdina Marshall, are passionate advocates for the preservation, promotion, and revitalization of Mi'kmaq traditional knowledge, including language, spirituality, stories, practices, and ways of knowing. In 2009, Albert and Merdina were awarded honorary doctorates in recognition of their devotion and commitment to this work. Their energy, wisdom, and knowledge helped create the innovative, integrative science academic program at Cape Breton University in the 1990s. Albert is an advocate of cross-cultural understandings and healing, and of our human responsibilities to care for all creatures and our Earth Mother. He is a fluent speaker of Mi'kmaq and a designated voice for the Mi'kmaq elders of Unama'ki with a respect to environmental issues. He sits on various committees and boards that guide initiatives in natural resource management and Aboriginal health research and education pertaining to First Nations issues. Albert is the member of the Advisory Council for the Unama'ki College of Cape Breton University, Collaborative Environmental Planning Initiative for the Brass Dolor Lake, and on the National Collaborative Center for Aboriginal Health, headquartered at the University of Northern British Columbia. Albert will be presenting on the two-eyed seeing approach, a phrase he coined. This two-eyed seeing, Edwaptamunk, is a guiding principle for collaborative work, which encourages learning to see from one eye with the strengths of the Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strength of Western knowledges and ways of knowing. Waldasik Daniel Joinawal Yag Albert, Galuka Gluswaan Niegal, Dilimiagal. Brenda Restool. Dr. Brenda M. Restool is from Doka's First Nation, Ojibwe, and from the Eagle Clan. She is a registered clinical psychologist. Dr. Restool is the Chief Executive Officer of the First Peoples Wellness Circle, which is an Indigenous-led national organization dedicated to raising the profile of Indigenous mental wellness using the Indigenous knowledge and evidence. Primary work of the First Peoples Wellness Circle is implementation of the First Nation Mental Wellness Continuum Framework, to which she is a co-chair of the implementation team and developing a network of supports for the mental wellness teams across the country. Her work spans from providing clinical and consulting services to First Nations communities in Anishinaabe territory to consultation with provincial and federal governments on Indigenous mental wellness, to an invited trainer and speaker to authoring book chapters and training manuals. Some of Dr. Restoul's past work experience includes the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples and working with federally incarcerated Indigenous women, children's mental health, and urban and First Nation mental wellness programs. She has particular interest in cultural safety, First Nation community development and capacity building, and reducing suicide rates in First Nations communities using First Nations knowledge and practices. And these are our speakers, and we thank you very much. And I know Albert and Brenda well, and you'll enjoy their topic, and I'm sure as well as Claire's. So thank you very much, and back to you, Patsy, I guess.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. And what I didn't do when I called on Eva to do the introduction was let you know that she is a board member of ASI, and we're really privileged to have her participate and share her wisdom every board meeting we have and in between. So thank you very much, Eva. Susan Hartley is another board member, and she will be moderating the session behind the scenes and keeping an eye on the Q&A. And Claire Betker, you've been introduced to, and she will now turn it over to her, Claire, and you can start the session.
And just before we start, we have recognized that there were some audio issues with the French translation, and we should have them resolved now.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Patsy. Thank you, Julie, for that incredibly beautiful story, and thank you, Eva, for the very respectful introduction. My name is Claire Betker, and I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I want to begin by acknowledging the land from which I'm speaking today. I'm in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dakota, and the Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I respectfully acknowledge that we all live and work in traditional lands of the many Indigenous nations of Canada, across Canada. I honor and am grateful for the ancestry, the heritage, and the gifts of the Indigenous people, and in particular, the knowledge and stories. And thank you, Julie, for the beautiful story of Sweetgrass this morning. The National Collaborating Center for Determinants of Health, of which I'm the scientific director, is one of 6 collaborating centers funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada and have been in operation since 2005-2006. Our role is to translate knowledge and evidence. In other words, to get knowledge and evidence into the hands of decision makers across Canada. Decision makers from point of care practitioners, those at the front line, to public health and community organizations, and to multiple levels of government. Knowledge and evidence, including that knowledge that found in stories. And I'm very excited to be with you here today for this opening session. Let's Talk Policy, a call for transformative change. And then I'm actually moderating the next plenary panel on evidence for upstream policies that promote mental health. Our plan for this 45-minute plenary session was to host a conversation with Elder Albert Marshall to explore two-eyed seeing as an approach to policy action for transformative change. And as Eva said in the introduction, two-eyed seeing refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of indigenous knowledges and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledges and ways of knowing. And most importantly, learning to use both eyes together for the benefit of all. Elder Marshall was unable to be here today, but last Friday I had the opportunity to have a conversation with him, and we're going to play that interview for you, or that conversation, in a few minutes. And as you listen to Elder Marshall, I'd really ask you to consider how two-eyed seeing can be used or applied in your organization and in your practice, or in your role, or in your life. Elder Albert Marshall is very clear that what is needed today is transformative change. And to get that type of change, we must all take action, and we must all act collectively and collaboratively. So as you listen, and I'm going to ask you if you might share some of those reflections in the Q&A box that's available to you. How can you act? How can you take action? What is a small first step? Or perhaps a big first step? What is your vision for transformative change, given the unprecedented times that we're living in? And after we view the conversation, I'm going to ask you to continue to add your reflections as Dr. Brenda Restool, the CEO of First Peoples Wellness Circle, will summarize the session for us. So Julia, could you please play that video now? Thank you.
Julia, you'll need to turn on your mic so we can hear the sound. Still no sound.
Still no sound?
No.
Okay. Give me one moment.
Maybe it's because you have a headset on.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Elder Marshall, I am so honored to be with you today and having this opportunity to speak with you and to ask you some really critical questions. But I'd like first for you to introduce yourself and to tell us who you are.
Yes, I am an old Mi'kmaq. My name is Albert Marshall, and I am from the Moose Clan, and I am from Mi'kma'ki, the territory of the Mi'kmaq. But I do reside in the community called Eskasoni here in the Breton.
Thank you. And we are talking today in this session about policy, about transformative change, and about policy frameworks. And we're very interested in hearing about the concept of two-eyed seeing, the approach. It's being used around the world. It's being used in Canada. So could you just share your understanding and your work around two-eyed seeing?
Yes, I would be very honored in doing that. As you know, this another perspective, in my humble opinion, is not just a guiding principle as to how we go through life while we are here, but I strongly feel that this is something that is very much inherent to the Aboriginal ways of thinking. That in putting on your Aboriginal lens, everything that you are looking at, or hearing, or seeing, is pretty much influenced on your culture, your language, and the principles and ideologies that have been passed on to you by through generations. And this is something in which we are constantly making a concerted effort as to how to live by those principles. Because with those principles is always something in which you look at everything from another perspective. And since we are no longer can be the way we were, hunters and gatherers, we now have to coexist with others that have brought forth another form of knowledge. And the onus is on me, as an Aboriginal, as a Mi'kmaq old man, to first of all look at whatever the issue is that's been presented before me, and I look at it from my Aboriginal lens. And just to go back a little bit with the concept of this Tues, you're always in the mindset of looking at everything from another perspective. Not necessarily to question the integrity of it, but rather, how do I transform this knowledge, or how do I fine-tune this knowledge so that not only will it become much more meaningful for me, but rather, how could I then look at that knowledge and see where and how can I include my ways of knowing, my ways of seeing into this, so that not only will I have a better understanding, but also I can become then a contributing part of whatever solutions that may flow from this perception. Because Tues to me, I think, has to be not just a guiding principle, but as well, it has to be action oriented. And I believe what I mean from that is that if we talk about, especially about, say, mental health, I think it would be imperative not just to look at the symptom, but as well try to find a way as to how do we invoke another paradigm or something in which that we could also address the causes of those symptoms. Because just trying to address or deal with the symptom on hand, it does not really, to us, it doesn't really do anything to become well again. Because if we can't go back and look at what are the contributing factors of these challenges that we have, and try to come up with the solutions. So therefore, I believe, in order to address any issue, especially in the areas of health or otherwise, I think it should be incumbent upon us to look not just only look at everything from a symptoms perspective, but rather, how do we engage others to help us to explore, to see exactly how and where these factors first emerge, maybe from the past challenges we may have had, whether we call it intergenerational traumas, or whether we call them PTSD. These challenges, I believe, are so prevalent in our First Nations communities at this juncture. And in my humble opinion, obesity, diabetes, and mental health are very much in the epidemic proportions here, not only here in Eskasoni, but here in the Maritimes as I see them. And I believe in order for us to adequately address those issues, we now have to turn another page in which we look backwards and see how did we get here, and what were some of the things that had to be incorporated or integrated for us to be here, and always reflect back on those and see what, where, and how can we extract lessons from some of those past actions to fine-tune them and to bring them to the present moment. So to what I see, and to me, then I think it has to be. If it's not going to be used as going to be action oriented, then I don't think it would be fair just to use that concept for the sake of using it. Because I believe this, no matter what state we may be in at this juncture, when some of these ideas or some of these things were first identified, we don't know at this juncture as to how much they have progressed. Because I believe, again, those were only looked at, the symptoms were only looked at, and not the causes of those symptoms. And to me, this is essential. If we're going to invoke this concept with our two eyes, we always have to find a way as to. We can't eliminate it, but I believe we can provide help for the people that are suffering from that, to be able to function as effectively as they can, and maybe sometimes in the future there'll be some cure will come forth for those illnesses. But in the meantime, I believe there is the solutions that we may be envisioning cannot just come from us as Aboriginal people, but rather we have to humble ourselves and embrace what we call the spirit of collaboration, the spirit of co-learning, in which we do exactly that. We constantly make a concerted effort as to how can we integrate the best, whatever science and technology has brought forth, and the best what our ancestors have left for us. Because some of these challenges we are facing today, I don't think they just came. I don't think they just came by recently. They always have been around. And having said that, so our ancestors must have had some way of how to deal with them, how to address them, and how to help people that succumb to these kind of challenges. So again, to what I see, and to me, I think has to be something in which we seriously draw up whatever is going to be required, whether it's a policy or an action, in which we look at this symptom and walk around it and see how and where can we pin it down where this actually came from and how it got to be where it is. Because if something is not attended to initially, is it possible for it to progress or to manifest itself into another level? And the other thing that I see is that when I invoke with some of the health issues that we have today, is that we have a tendency only to look at it from the modern context and not be overly concerned of actually coming up with some kind of a solution as to how can we not eliminate it maybe, but at least provide the opportunity for that individual to function effectively. And I know one way that was done within our culture was that any challenges, especially mental health. It was never meant to be labeled as a something that should not be part and parcel of our lives, but rather something that was always here. And person with those certain challenges, try to make an effort of trying to utilize the gift that comes from that. So words like disability did not exist, but rather another form of an ability. And we believe that, if these things are left unattended, is it possible for them to progress to another level in which inevitably these people might have to be institutionalized? Because in my experience, I never once saw anyone in my community that had to be institutionalized. The community always had a way or found a way as to how to guide this individual to be just as much of a contributing member of a community in a nation as everybody else, even though they might have a different and a unique gift than everybody else.
Thank you for that. This particular conference, there's so much in what you've said that I think is going to be really useful to those that are participating in this Summer Institute. But what I hear there is that leading from the heart, right? So you hear that compassion and that empathy and collaboration, as you said. But also I know in my reading of the two-eyed seeing approach, fundamental to it is the whole notion of wholeness. So how can we as a society embrace that concept of wholeness? Elder Marshall.
Okay, exactly what do we mean when we use that term wholeness or holistic? We strongly believe that for any individual to be well, your four domains have to be well maintained in a balanced and harmonious way. Now, normally I believe physical, cognitive, and emotional are the ones that are being, what I'm seeing, are only considered. And the part that's really amiss for us is the spiritual domain. Because isn't it obvious that if you are tuned into that concept, and if and when any one of those domains is amiss or missing, how can you feel well? And if you're not well, how can you possibly be expected to excel in any capacity? Whether the gifts you have will be contributing factors to the community, or just to be able to function as effectively as you can with the rest of the community, with the rest of the communities, even though you have this unique or special gift that you have. So wholeness then, I think, it has to be paramount, because if we're going to be talking about wellness, and it should be, and I think it should be obvious that looking at considering state in which we're in now, as I said, obesity, diabetes, and mental health are in the epidemic proportions, even though we are still very much considered a minority, small in numbers, and therefore I think by not acknowledging that, it has opened the doors of opportunity for the system to ignore those issues, in which now we can honestly and truthfully say that why is it that there is a high degree of discrepancy between the health delivery services, between the mainstream and the Aboriginal people. And I think this is an area in which I think together, collectively, we have to try to find a solution as to how we can help support each other of meeting these challenges, because these challenges are not going to go away.
Thank you for that wisdom, and that really does resonate with me. So this conference again is about transformative change and upstream action. You use the word together, collective action. So Elder Marshall, where are we going? Where do you see us going?
I believe as a starting point, whether we engage ourselves into a long dialogue, but I believe somewhere along the line, somewhere along the time, we have to somehow come to some understanding between us that there is a need of some kind of a transformative change. And for us, and when I use that word us, I'm not just saying us as but I mean all of us. And once we can identify and agree that there is some need of a transformative change, then we have to identify it. And once we identify the solutions that have to come forth, because with the understanding that the issues are very, very complex, and no one group can adequately address those challenges, because again, I have to be humble and say that my understanding, my ways of knowing, would no longer suffice in this very technological era in which we're in, without the aid of a tool called science. And to come up with a solution, or a working solution, and we now have identified what this transformative change is all about, then we will be able to craft a journey forward in which we will humbly embrace those both ways of knowing, the Aboriginal ways of knowing and the mainstream ways of knowing. Because without that, nothing will change. Nothing will change, because right now, we have now an opportunity with these challenges we are facing through COVID-19, for us to really sit down and really reflect. And how we're doing it is we're putting our fingers in a victory form, and we put ourselves in that bottom of the V, and we ask ourselves, where are we going? How are we going to get there? Is it going to be business as usual, or are we going to seriously reflect not only where we came from, but most importantly, how did we get here? And at what cost have we cost, especially to the environment? How much have we been a factor of allowing the social injustices to prevail? So these are the areas, I believe, that we collectively have to really seriously find a way as to how can we not just embrace, but as well look at, you know, how would it be possible for these solutions to transcend to all peoples, to a certain few. So this sense of exclusion is has to be one of our greatest challenges to address. And we all have to ask ourselves collectively, why have we allowed ourselves to be silent, inactive, and be in denial for some of those injustices? Because it should become obvious to all of us that we are not the superior being here. We have a vital role to play because we have something that no other creature has, and that is the cognitive mind. Now let's engage that energy for it to be used in a very positive and holistic way, rather than an arm of destruction, an arm of exclusion, and transform it into an arm of inclusion. Because it's very difficult, incomprehensible really, why Aboriginal people are so ignored, suppressed, and so on. And I wish someday someone can enlighten us on that. Why are we not part and parcel of this, of whatever we're going to be envisioning or whatever we're going to be doing? So I wish I had that answer, but I believe if we can just somehow, I believe, humble ourselves. And I would even go as far to suggest to the rest of my non-native brothers and sisters that if you cannot stand to see me or to look at me, why don't you please close your eyes so you will not be troubled, but at least you will hear of what I am hearing and what I am telling you. And I don't believe that should compromise anyone's standards, anyone's perceptions, but rather it should awaken the spirit that's been dormant in all of us, in which individualism has been so much promoted and talked about that we actually come to this illusion that only one race is superior. And as a result of that, it has transcended across all groups, in which most of people think now that we are the superior being over our natural world. And again, in this process of reflection, we need signs. We need tools that the science has brought forth. But that's just maintaining, again, the symptoms. The other part that we all have to commit ourselves to is how do we move forward of being very much conscious that we will not allow anyone else or individually to further eradicate or to compromise the ability of nature to sustain herself, nor compromise the ability of nature to be able to heal herself. Because what would it take? How can one articulate a position to say that, you know, if our natural world or Mother Earth is not healthy, how can we be healthy? So I realize this is a very complex. This is presented in a very, very complex way. But in order for us, I believe, to find some level of comfort of surviving, I believe we have to somehow agree that there is a great sense of transformative change needed by all of us, not just one of us, select few, because it's obvious to us that the reason why we are facing some of these challenges, is it possible that our Mother Earth is somehow retaliating? Is it possible that our sending us a message that you have caused so much harm to me that I can no longer look after myself, nor can I look after my humans? So this transformative change, I believe, has to be something in which we look at ourselves, not just what we have, what gifts we have been given, and to use those gifts collectively for the ones that need it, for the ones that cannot speak up like we can. Because if we don't do that, the science and technology alone is not going to suffice. Because science and technology could only deal with the symptoms. And what we're proposing is that, yes, we need experts. We need people that are exceptionally gifted, be able to take care of us in that perspective. But we also have to engage others to look at the main cause of those symptoms and how do we begin to rectify them? How do we begin to fine-tune them to be more harmonious? How do we train? How do we retrain our own thinking? Not to be so exploitive. How can we train ourselves not to be constantly using this arm of destruction, but rather how do we collectively strengthen this arm of maintaining and creating a balance with our Earth Mother, because she needs it at this juncture. We have now, no matter how you look at it, we now have compromised the carrying capacity of Earth, and we all have compromised the cleansing capacity of Earth. So shouldn't that then be a message for all of us that there is going to be a great need of some kind of a transformative change in which we will look inward and reflect backwards and see not only where we have gone wrong, but constantly draw lessons from the actions of our past and fine-tune them so that the action forward will be one of which will be balance and harmony. Because if she again, a reminder, if she is healthy, we too can and will be healthy.
Thank you, Elder Marshall, for incredible gifts of your knowledge and your wisdom.
Incroyable de vos connaissances.
I agree, are complex, but I also believe they are essential, and they will guide the deliberations and the conversations of this conference in front of us. So thank you so much for your time today.
D'être là aujourd'hui.
Thank you, Julia, for playing that and for managing that video. That was an incredible conversation with an incredible person, Albert Marshall. And I know it leaves us with many, many things to consider and to reflect on. I'm going to ask you again to enter, if you feel comfortable, your reflections on action in the chat box or in the Q&A. But I'm now going to ask Dr. Brenda Restool, and she's the CEO of the First Nations Wellness Circle, to just provide her reflections on what Elder Marshall had to say to us today. Brenda?
Good morning. Ani, Bojo, Wapsequenstijnakas, Magisi Dodem, Dokistinjaba, Anishinaabe, and I would just like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the beautiful territory of Nipissing First Nation, which is in Ontario in the Robinson-Huron Treaty. I am looking out over beautiful Lake Nipissing at my own community of Dokis First Nation. I'm an Anishinaabe Quaich. And I thank the conference organizers for inviting me to participate and listen and have the opportunity to summarize what are some really critical lessons and messages from Albert Marshall. Our elder, I'm humbled to be asked to summarize, I think, the work and the thinking of Elder today. And I'd just like to say that when I listened to him, he gave some really critical pieces of information that we need to think about. And Claire started talking about that. And some of those things he pushed us to think about is that two-eyed seeing is not just a principle. It's not just a theory and something that we should hold in the back of our mind, but it is something that has action and it has evidence, and it can be used to bring forward change, to implement change, and to be transformative in its change. One of the things that I heard from him is that we have to recognize we are all influenced by our worldview, by our lens, by our culture, by the knowledge that comes to us, not only from our families, but from our ancestors and from our practices. And as a result of that, one of the things that two-eyed seeing requires we do is that we understand how that ancestral knowledge, that ancestral evidence, and those cultural practices influence the way that we see the world and the way that we address things that come to our realization. And in this case, when we look at mental health and mental health promotion, and we look at mental health for young people or wellness for young people, we have to recognize that for Indigenous young people and for all young people, that we can be enriched by infusing and integrating or even braiding the perspectives of Indigenous knowledge and evidence with that of Western knowledge and evidence. So to be action-oriented, as I understood from him, he said, was really that we have to engage Indigenous people in the conversations at the beginning, at the start of any reflection, review, and understanding about mental health and mental wellness. And so that means helping them to think, bringing us all together to discuss what are the challenges, what are the needs, so that together, collectively, we can begin to identify how we got here. How did Indigenous people get to the place of not enjoying health and wellness the way those in non-Indigenous and mainstream societies experience health and wellness? And how can we use the lessons that science and technology can help us to address, but also how can we begin to stop and listen to the evidence and the knowledge that comes from Indigenous people. And what he shared at the end was, to me, profoundly important, because he talked about that knowledge and evidence for Indigenous people comes from and sits within the land, within Mother Earth. When we look at Mother Earth, when we spend time on Mother Earth in the land with our relatives, we can see the ways of living a good life, the ways of living well. And I will insert into Elder Marshall's lessons that he gave us today is one of those teachings. And for me, one of those teachings is the teachings of the tree. When he talks about working and living collectively, I think that when we look at the trees and we think about that teaching, we look out, and for me, I'm looking out of my window, out over the lake, and there are a number of trees in front of the lake, and I see this one beautiful tall maple standing tall. And when we look at it from a surface point of view, and I understood that when he was talking about science and technology, is that it might be looking at things from a surface point of view. So this tree from a surface point of view looks very tall and majestic and standing on its own and able to weather the storm. It's kind of bent over. We get lots of wind here, and it's kind of bent over, and that yet it withstands all of those traumas, all of those pressures from nature. But if we were to dig below the surface, below the roots, we can begin to see that the tree has roots that spread out, and those roots spread out to include the connection of the roots from the other trees around it, from the oak trees, from the ash trees, from the birch trees, from all of the pine trees, all of those things around it. But it also connects to the grass, to the plants, and to the water. And in all of that, they come together as one large collective being. And it is the roots of the other trees that helps hold it up and keeps it and maintains its wellness. And so when I heard him talk about the importance of land, it struck me about that teaching, that two-eyed seeing requires that we recognize beneath the surface, we all must come together and hold each other up to be able to address and move beyond those collective traumas. And I see Patsy coming in, so I'm thinking I'm running out of my time. So I'm going to summarize it to say this. We must, what I heard from Elder Marshall was, we must move through the spirit of collaboration and co-learning to bring about our best thinking and our best solutions by recognizing our gifts and our strengths. That requires we pay attention to things like justice and equity, which are two critically important components of two-eyed seeing. It means that we cannot compartmentalize people's abilities, but rather we must create an equal playing field by bringing together the best thinking and knowledge of Indigenous and Western ways of knowing. So I'll stop there. I can't believe 8 to 10 minutes went that quickly. I'm happy to talk about this more tomorrow. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for that incredibly eloquent summary of a very, very humbling presentation by Albert Marshall. And Patsy, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and thank you first for the incredible opportunity to participate this morning. Thanks.
I'm going to, I know Susan Hartley has been monitoring any questions that come through on the Q&A. And Susan, I'm wondering if we can just highlight those and maybe hold them for after the panel. What do you think?
There actually were no questions on the Q&A other than questions regarding management. So, but what there was an expression of profound honor and gratitude to be hearing the wisdom of Albert Marshall and our elders. So I want to pass that along and thank everybody for participating in this and everybody for avidly listening, so much so that the questions are fermenting, and I'm sure that they'll provide them later. So yeah, we're running a bit behind time, so I think again, thank you, everybody. And Patsy, I'll take it over to you to close the session.
Okay, I just want to let everybody know that our gift this year to our speakers is Amazing Atlantic Canadian Kids. It's a brand new book that's out, and you will clearly, you're not here, I can't present it to you, so they will be sent in the mail. So just to let you know, and thank you very much, and thank you to Susan for monitoring questions, and she'll continue to do that through the panel. Thank you, Brenda, very much. I know it's early hours from the morning for you. Appreciate it. And Claire, I'm going to turn it over to you in the panel. I know we're running a bit behind, but I'm sure that we want to hear the evidence that our panelists have to share, and you'll do a great job in moving that forward. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.